My wife, Sarah, poked her head out the door. Just try to avoid Brenda today, okay? My blood pressure can't take another gnome sightant. I winced. Last spring, Brenda McLaughlin, president of our esteemed Chestnut Hollow Estates Homeowners Association, had personally issued me a citation because my garden gnome, Norman, was, and I quote from the pink slip she'd jammed in my mailbox, exhibiting unapproved levels of whimsy. Norman. A 2-foot-tall ceramic dude with a fishing rod and a perpetually surprised expression. Apparently, in Chestnut Hollow, whimsy had to be board approved. "Babe, I'm a leaf on the wind," I called back. "She won't even see me." Famous last words. I just fired up the loader, relishing the deep rumble that vibrated right up through my boots when the sirens started. First it's faint, then it's that full-throated wail that makes the fillings in your teeth hum, and it's close, real close. I killed the engine, a knot tightening in my gut. Swinging down from the cab, I saw the smoke. Not just a little, like someone forgot their burgers on the grill. This was thick, angry, black smoke, billowing up a few streets over, towards the Hendersons' place. "That's not a barbecue," I muttered to my empty driveway. "That's a call the professionals kind of smoke." Sure enough, a big red fire truck, lights blazing, came barreling around the corner, heading for the narrow access point to our cul-de-sac. And then I saw her. Brenda. Standing arms crossed, her electric golf cart, the one she used to patrol Chestnut Hollow like a tiny, sun-visored despot, parked defiantly, completely and utterly across the road. Blocking it. Like a beige, battery-powered troll under a suburban bridge, the fire truck screeched to a halt, inches from the golf cart's flimsy plastic bumper. I could see the captain leaning out, his face already flushed. "Ma'am," he yelled, his voice tight with urgency. "We have an emergency. You need to move that vehicle now." Brenda McLaughlin, in all her petite, peroxided glory, did not flinch. She adjusted the strap of her oversized handbag. "This is a private access road for residents of Chestnut Hollow Estates only." Her voice, high and reedy, carried surprisingly well. "Do you have an appointment? And I will need to see your vehicle's emissions report. We have very strict environmental standards here." I swear, one of the firefighters in the back actually face-palmed. "Lady, are you serious?" another one yelled. "There's a house on fire." "And I'm serious about the HOA bylaws, young man," Brenda retorted, puffing out her chest. It was like watching a chihuahua square off against a Rottweiler. "Disorderly conduct, unapproved, heavy vehicles. I could write you up for a dozen violations right now." I just stood there, my own coffee growing cold in my hand, jaw probably somewhere around my knees. "Is this woman for real, The smoke was getting thicker. I could smell it now, acrid and terrifying. The Hendersons' place. Nice people. Had a fluffy cat named Mittens. I started walking over, a weird sense of unreality settling over me. "Brenda!" I called out, trying to keep my voice even, reasonable. Years of dealing with unreasonable clients in my landscaping business had taught me a few things about de-escalation, or so I thought. "Brenda, for God's sake, what are you doing? There's a fire!" She turned her laser-like gaze on me, and if looks could incinerate, I'd have been a pile of ash right there on Elm Street. "Michael, I should have known you'd be involved in this circus." She gestured vaguely at the massive, life-saving vehicle and its frustrated occupants. "Are these people with you? Are you having an unpermitted gathering? Because that's another fine, Michael, a big one." "They're firefighters, Brenda. I was trying, I really was. They need to get through. Someone's house is burning down." My voice was rising, despite my best efforts. "And they will track dirt onto our pristine asphalt," she shrieked, actually stomping a foot clad in a sensible, yet somehow aggressive, walking sandal. And the noise. It's disrupting the migratory patterns of the local robins. It's in the ecological impact study, Michael. You should read it sometime. The fire captain was on his radio, his voice a low, angry growl. You could see the veins pulsing in his neck. He looked like he was about 5 seconds from physically dragging Brenda and her ridiculous cart out of the way. And honestly, I wouldn't have blamed him. I'm looking at her. I'm looking at the fire truck. I'm looking at the column of smoke, now tinged with an ugly orange at its base. And something inside me just snaps. It's not even a conscious thought. It's like a circuit breaker flips, the one labeled polite societal norms. The one that usually stops you from, say, escalating a situation with heavy machinery. Words are useless, I knew it. Trying to reason with a Category 5 Karen in the midst of a suburban emergency? Yeah, good luck with that. My blood pressure was already staging a protest march up my neck. So I didn't say another word to Brenda. I just turned, walked, calmly but with a definite spring in my step back to my driveway. Back to that beautiful, yellow, diesel-chugging problem solver. My heart's hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. This is crazy. This is certifiably lose your HOA privileges, maybe get arrested, insane. But that smoke is thicker now. I can almost hear the flames crackling, a hungry, monstrous sound. Mittens the cat, Mr. and Mrs. Henderson. I pulled myself up into the loader's cab. The seat felt good, solid. The controls familiar in my hands. With a turn of the key, the engine rumbled to life. A deep, reassuring thrum that seemed to say, "Don't worry, Mike. I got this." Brenda saw me. Her eyes, already narrowed in suspicion, widened to the size of saucers. Then they narrowed again into furious slits. "Michael, what do you think you're doing? That is unpermitted heavy machinery operation before 9 a.m. I'm warning you." I put the loader in gear. I might have muttered, "Brenda, I'm about to operate some emergency pathway optimization." Or maybe I just thought it really, really loudly. Honestly, it's all a bit of a blur. The gap between the loader and Brenda's beige chariot of annoyance closed with a slow, deliberate inevitability. She was shrieking now, a continuous high-pitched wail that could probably shatter glass at 50 paces. Something about property values, imminent lawsuits, and the sanctity of Chestnut Hollow's pristine, robin-friendly environment. Then, the moment of truth. There was this crunch. It wasn't a huge, destructive explosion, more like a really aggressive can opener meeting a particularly stubborn can of beans. The loader's heavy steel bucket made contact with the golf cart's flimsy flank, and the cart just gave. Metal groaned. Plastic cracked and splintered. It was a beautiful, terrible sound. I kept the pressure even, nudging, pushing. The golf cart slid with a screech of tortured tires, off the road and onto Brenda's own meticulously manicured, and I knew for a fact, overwatered lawn. It came to rest, tilted at a jaunty angle, right in the middle of her prize-winning petunias. Oh, the irony. It was poetic, really. A greasy, mechanical haiku. Brenda was doing this weird, hopping, sputtering dance of pure, unadulterated rage on the sidewalk. If looks could kill, I'd be a smoking crater. "My cart! My award-winning turf! You barbarian!" The fire captain, bless his heart, didn't miss a beat. He stared for maybe half a second, his jaw agape, then bellowed, "Go, go, go!" The fire truck roared past me, sirens blaring with renewed vigor. As they passed, one of the younger firefighters, a kid with wide, slightly terrified eyes, gave me a definite thumbs up. Neighbors were starting to emerge from their houses like meerkats sensing a disturbance. Phones were out, jaws were dropped. Old Mr. Henderson from across the street, who'd had his own long-running wars with Brenda over the precise height and material composition of his bird feeder was actually applauding. Slowly, reverently, like he was witnessing a miracle. Adrenaline is a hell of a drug. I'm shaking a little, my hands slick on the wheel, but there's also this weird, almost zen-like calm washing over me, like I've just done the most logical, albeit spectacularly illegal, thing in the world. I put the loader in park, killed the engine. The sudden silence was deafening, broken only by Brenda's continued, though slightly less coherent, stream of invective. She was already stabbing at her phone, her voice trembling with fury. "Police! Yes, 911, I need officers immediately. A man has attacked me with a giant yellow claw. He's a menace, a dangerous, unhinged landscaper." I just leaned back in the loader's seat, waited. Nothing to do now but face the music. And the music, I suspected, was going to have a lot of sirens in it, and possibly a lengthy legal battle featuring prominently in the percussion section. "Did you see that?" I heard one neighbor whisper, loud enough to carry. "Brenda had it coming if you ask me," another muttered back. "Remember the squirrel incident?" "Is that even legal?" a third voice quavered. "Honey, get the good camera." That was Mrs. Periwinkle, who documented every neighborhood event with the dedication of a war correspondent. It didn't take long. 2 squad cars, lights flashing but sirens off, rolled up the street with that purposeful, no-nonsense air that cops everywhere seemed to perfect. Officer Miller, older, with a face that had seen too many Tuesdays like this, climbed out of the first car. Officer Kowski, younger, crisper, with that slightly too eager glint in his eye, emerged from the second. Brenda, spotting her reinforcements, launched into an Oscar-worthy performance. Tears streamed down her face. Or maybe it was just sweat, it was getting warm out. She clutched her chest dramatically. "Officers! Thank heavens you're here! He tried to run me down. He's destroyed my property. My emotional distress is incalculable. I fear for my life." She pointed a trembling finger at me, still perched in the loader like a king on a very dusty, diesel-powered throne. Officer Miller approached me, his expression unreadable. "Okay, son," he said, his voice tired. "Let's start from the beginning. What the heck happened here? And please, for the love of all that's holy, tell me there's a good reason you used that thing. On that thing." He gestured from the loader to the mangled, petunia-crushed golf cart. "Officer," I began, trying for calm and factual. "She was blocking the fire truck. There's a house on fire just up the road, the Hendersons. The fire crew asked her to move, repeatedly. She refused. I cleared the path. That's the long and short of it." Kowski was already puffing up, ready to deliver a lecture on property rights and municipal codes, when a familiar red vehicle pulled up. The fire captain. He hopped out, his face grim but determined. "Hold on a second, officers," he said, his voice carrying authority. He pointed squarely at me. "This man did us a huge service. That woman," a curt nod towards Brenda, who was now attempting to look frail and victimized, was deliberately obstructing a fire crew actively responding to a structure fire. Every second counts in these situations. His actions likely saved significant property, maybe even lives. Miller and Kowski exchanged a look. I could practically see the paperwork piling up in their minds. "Well," Miller said, rubbing his temples, "this just got complicated." Kowski, still frowning, asked for my license and the loader's registration. "Is this vehicle even street legal, sir?" "It's a rental for my driveway project," I explained. "Got all the permits for that if you want to see 'em." I figured now was a good time to call Tony, the owner of the rental company. I put him on speaker. "Yeah, hi Tony, Mike Carter. About that Cat 938K loader I rented yesterday?" "Mikey, how's she handlin'? Bet that old driveway of yours is quaking in its concrete boots, eh?" Tony's voice boomed out of the phone. Yeah, about that, Tony. We might have a slight situation with the loader. A situation? What kind of situation? You scratched the paint? Don't tell me you tried to lift your pickup with it again, I told you. No, nothing like that, I cut in, acutely aware of the two police officers and a seething Brenda listening in. It's kind of a long story involving an HOA president, the fire department, and a strategically relocated golf cart. There was a pause. Then, Tony's unmistakable roar of laughter. Mikey, you telling me you used my 3-ton Caterpillar to redecorate a golf cart? Did you at least get pictures? Brenda McLaughlin, right? That old battle axe? Ha! I knew someone would snap eventually. Attaboy, Mikey. Don't worry about the loader, kid. Consider it a public service rental. Officer Kowski looked like he was going to have an aneurysm. Officer Miller just sighed, a long, suffering sound. Okay, he said. Statements. Everybody. The next hour was a blur of notebooks, pointed questions, and Brenda's increasingly dramatic reinterpretations of events, in which I apparently cackled maniacally while aiming the loader directly at her head. The fire captain gave his statement, cool and professional, backing up my version. Neighbors offered theirs, a mixed bag of "he's a hero" and, well, HOA rules are rules, but it was clear I wasn't going to jail today. But Officer Miller pulled me aside before they left. Look, off the record, he said, lowering his voice. I get it. My sister lives in an HOA from hell. On the record, you damaged property. Knowingly. This is going to be a headache. A big, expensive headache. He clapped me on the shoulder. Good luck, son. You're going to need it. No kidding, officer. As the police cars pulled away, the neighborhood seemed to collectively exhale. Then, the reactions really started. Mrs. Periwinkle was already uploading her video, narrating with the breathless excitement of a seasoned news anchor. And here we see the heroic resident, Michael Carter, taking decisive action against the tyrannical reign of... Mr. Henderson, bless his heart, rushed over, his face smudged with soot, but beaming. Mike, man, they said if that truck had been delayed another 5 minutes, my whole kitchen would be gone. My cat, Whiskers, was hiding under the bed. He's traumatized, but he's alive. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. He actually tried to hug me, which was a little awkward given I was still covered in driveway dust and moral ambiguity. My phone started buzzing relentlessly. Friend requests from people I hadn't seen since 3rd grade. Texts from my actual friends, ranging from, "Dude, WTF," to, "You are my new god." And the local Facebook group, Chestnut Hollow Chatter, had apparently exploded. Someone had already dubbed me Loader Mike. There were memes of me in the loader with a superhero cape photoshopped on. My life was officially a B-movie. The following week was surreal. I was the talk of the town. The grocery store trips took twice as long because people kept stopping me to shake my hand or ask if Brenda had spontaneously combusted from rage yet. Tony, from the rental company, called to say he was waiving the rental fee for the day of civic duty and that his bookings for loaders had mysteriously tripled. Apparently, he chortled, everyone wants to be prepared for their own Brenda situation. You're a trendsetter, Mikey. Then, the official-looking envelope arrived. Cream-colored, heavy cardstock. The HOA seal embossed in gold. My heart sank. I was being summoned to an emergency HOA meeting. Topic: the Elm Street incident and gross misuse of heavy machinery by resident Michael Carter, with subsequent discussion on appropriate sanctions and potential expulsion from Chestnut Hollow Estates. Sarah just looked at me. You're going to wear a clean shirt, right? The community hall was packed. It felt less like an HOA meeting and more like a public trial with slightly better snacks. Brenda was at the head table, looking remarkably composed, though I noticed she was wearing a rather theatrical foam neck brace that hadn't been present on the day of the incident. Pure sympathy play. She banged a tiny gavel. "This emergency meeting of the Chestnut Hollow Homeowners Association is now in session," she announced, her voice dripping with forced solemnity. "We are here today to discuss a most grievous and unprecedented event that has shattered the peace and tranquility of our idyllic community." She paused for dramatic effect, her gaze sweeping over the assembled residents before landing, with undisguised venom, on me. I speak, of course, of the unprovoked and barbaric assault perpetrated by Mr. Michael Carter upon a dedicated servant of this community, namely myself, and upon valuable HOA property. Her speech went on for a good 10 minutes, a masterpiece of victimhood and righteous indignation. She painted me as a loader lout, a suburban terrorist, and, my personal favorite, a man clearly unsuited to the refined sensibilities of Chestnut Hollow. When it was my turn, I just laid out the facts, same as I told the police. The fire, the blocked truck, her refusal to move. The fire captain was there, bless his fire-resistant socks, and he stood up and corroborated everything. He even added, "In my professional opinion, Mr. Carter's quick thinking prevented a far more serious situation. If we'd been delayed any further, the Henderson home could have been a total loss, and the fire might have spread." That's when the floodgates opened. Mrs. Periwinkle, emboldened, stood up. "Brenda, with all due respect, and I use that term loosely, you told my 8-year-old grandson Timmy he couldn't have a lemonade stand on his own driveway because it violated unlicensed commercial activity bylaws. He was raising money for the animal shelter, for crying out loud. Then, Mr. Rodriguez, a quiet man who usually kept to himself. And what about the petition for speed bumps on Oak Street? My dog almost got hit last month. You've ignored that petition signed by 30 residents for 2 years, Brenda. But you had time to measure Mrs. Gable's mailbox height 3 times last Tuesday." It went on like that for nearly an hour. Years of pent-up HOA grievances, petty tyrannies, and ignored requests came pouring out. The ecological impact study for the Robins was brought up, with someone revealing Brenda had commissioned it from her nephew's brand new and entirely unaccredited environmental consultancy. The twist, the real kicker, came from Mrs. Henderson herself. Voice shaking, she said, "Brenda, I have to ask. The Hendersons had just won the Yard of the Month award, the one you've coveted for 3 years straight. Were you perhaps a little upset with us that morning? Is that why you were so determined not to let anyone help us?" The air went out of Brenda. Her face, which had been flushed with outrage, turned a sort of mottled gray. She stammered something about absurd accusations and maintaining standards, but the damage was done. This wasn't just about rules. This was about rhododendrons and petty vengeance. The neck brace suddenly looked even more ridiculous. The meeting devolved into utter, glorious chaos. Brenda was banging her gavel, but no one was listening. They were too busy comparing notes on her reign of terror. The aftermath? Legally, Officer Miller was right. It was a headache. I got a hefty fine for willful destruction of HOA property, the golf cart. My insurance company and Brenda's insurance company had a very loud, expensive argument that I mostly stayed out of. A Loader Mike Defense Fund, started by some anonymous benefactor on GoFundMe, I suspect Tony from the rental place, actually covered most of it. No criminal charges, thanks to the fire captain and about 15 character witnesses who basically said Brenda was a menace to society. At the next actual HOA election, Brenda McLaughlin was resoundingly, spectacularly voted out. She didn't even get nominated for Keeper of the Community Bulletin Board. Last I heard, she was considering a move to a less whimsical neighborhood. One with fewer gnomes and presumably no front-end loaders. Life's weird. One minute you're just a guy trying to fix his disaster of a driveway, the next you're a minor local celebrity, a symbol of suburban rebellion. My landscaping business, Carter's Cuts and Creations, got a surprising number of new clients, most of whom just wanted to shake my hand and tell me their own HOA horror story. I'm not saying I recommend vigilantism by Caterpillar, but sometimes you gotta do what a guy with a loader's gotta do. I'm out in the driveway now, the new concrete finally curing. The loader's long gone, back to Tony's. Sarah's planting some new flowers. They're aggressively vibrant. Norman, my gnome, is back in his rightful place by the porch. He's got a tiny 3D printed firefighter's helmet now, a gift from one of the guys at the station. Brenda would have hated it. The new HOA president, a very reasonable woman named Carol, who mostly communicates via polite emails, walked by earlier. She smiled. "Morning, Mike. Driveway's looking great. Just, try to keep the heavy machinery on your own property today, huh?" She actually winked. "No promises, Carol," I said, grinning back. "But I'll try." "Yeah, that's what happened. And you know what? I wouldn't change a thing." "Well, maybe I'd have charged a little extra for the Petunia relocation service.